they've taken all the time.
Till we leave.
Stop at one.
So praise the Lord. I'd never heard of Bethel until I recently watched a DVD called Furious Love, and one of the sequences in Furious Love is Bethel in Milan, and it was Milan, wasn't it? Madrid. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Well, Sally and I are involved with an organisation called Seeway Trust. God, in His wisdom, told me to rescue children. I don't know why, because I don't like kids very much.
That's why.
It's true. It's true. But that's right. In 1997, we started Seaway Trust. We've been involved in India and in Africa and other places. At the moment, we have 4 projects that we're involved with. One is in Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is run by a lady called Alina, who lives near a city called Zhytomyr, 100 miles away from Kiev. And because of the alcohol and drug problems over there, there's lots of kids that are not being looked after properly. And she opens her church every day, and they feed a number of children. So we just support them by sending money over so that they can feed these kids. And we were over. I was over there last year. What was it? June, was it? June last year. I was over there in June last year. I was taken actually into Kiev and shown where all the killings and all that sort of thing went on when they tried to get rid of, or when they actually did get rid of the president who cleared off to Russia with, I think, 37 lorry loads of the best that Ukraine ever had, all their paintings and all that sort of thing, and money, and he left Ukraine broke. And of course, at the same time, the Russians are attacking in the east, and there's a big war going on between the Russians and the Ukrainians, trying to stop, and they're trying to stop the Russians coming in. So we feed kids in Ukraine. There's probably 25 or 30 children that are fed. They come in every day. They're not actually fed in the church. They're given a jug of food. The day that we were there, they had a big thing of chicken borscht, and it was also like a rice dish, and also like chicken burgers. And we actually ate what they had, and it was good food. So they do this every day during the week. The kids have to fend for themselves in the weekends, and then they have their church on the Sunday. So we were quite impressed with what we saw. Some interesting stories came out from there. One particular lady, probably my age, getting on, in her 60s. She had a daughter who was deeply into drugs and alcohol and prostitution, and they had 2 little children. And Granny was looking after the kids, because the daughter, whenever there was money, the daughter used to spend the money or go off and do whatever. And the children were hungry. And the story came to the church that this old lady was hearing the children crying all night and all day, because they had no food. So somebody from Alina's church went there, and they came in. The old lady now has now become a Christian. The children are being fed every day, and there's a total difference in that family. Daughter comes and goes, and she's still doing what she's been doing forever. We're involved with Tanzania. We met Wendy and Rebecca probably 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. They were missionaries in Zhytomyr, in Arusha, and they were talking about opening an orphanage there. And of course, we were into that sort of business, so we spoke to them, we got involved with them, and now they've got a fairly big orphanage there. They've got a big building in which they look after the babies, babies are not looked after very well, not very well thought of in Tanzania. So they look after the kids, and they also have a ministry up in the mountain, Mount Meru, where grandmothers are looking after children. From what I can understand, the families are either dead through AIDS or that sort of thing. So the kids are not being looked after. And then my main interest is in Ghana. God sent me to Ghana in March 2000, where a lady had 60 odd children, and she was looking after these kids, but there was no fresh water in the house. They would bring in water in a lorry once or twice a month. There was no electricity. They had a building, but the kids used to, what really touched me was that the kids used to pray every morning. 10 years old, 10 and younger, used to pray every morning because there was no food in the larder. And they knew that when they prayed, God would supply the food. And I wanted to go and see that. I thought, I've got to go and see that. So we've been supporting Mama Emma in Bojasi in Ghana since that time. We're also involved now with a group called Rural Outreach Foundation. The story is that I was going over to Ghana 5 or 6 years ago, and a couple of days before I went, I felt God say, I want you to go to the villages. Oh, okay, Lord. So when I landed in Accra, I stayed with the Africans, and the African couple that I stayed with, the wife said to me, I shan't be around for the weekends because I'm going to the villages. What a surprise. So we've been involved with Rural Outreach Foundation since that time, going to the villages. When I drove out to the villages with these people, I noticed there was a lot of Islam influence. All the water holes, all the things for getting water, there was Islamic writing on them. So they'd all been put in by the Muslims. In every village there was a mosque, even though there was a church, there was a mosque. So I really felt that we need to break the spiritual power of Islam and also the spiritual power of witchcraft in that place. So we've been supporting them ever since. We built a mission house and we built a school. There's probably just coming up now 100 kids in the school. You're talking about kids that live in mud huts that never have a chance to go to school. The kids now, I should have bought some photographs. The kids now go to school and they've got little uniforms and they're being educated and learning to read and write where their parents can't read and write. Amazing. With regard to the mission house, when I was praying one day, God said, I'm happy with the school, but I want you to set up a training program to teach village pastors. So we're just in the process now of setting up a training program to train village pastors so that they can be in their villages and go from village to village sharing the gospel with people. And in order to pay for that, I'm sort of looking out of the box really. When I was there last year, somebody said we could do with some second-hand clothes. Second-hand clothes is a big business in Africa. You bring the clothes in and they sell them. So at the moment I've got a barn which is probably twice the size of this room, full of clothes. I've got a baler which will bale these clothes into 55 kilo bales, and the plan is to send a container full of clothes out to Accra, sell them, make a huge profit, and then we can carry on with the business of what we're doing. It's all very well asking people to support you, like this church blesses Seeway Trust and blesses Zimbabwe, but there's more. You know, you see on the television it says, oh, you can sponsor a child for 10 quid. Never in your life are you going to sponsor a child for 10 quid. If you really do it tight, you're talking about £50 to sponsor a child. We don't sponsor children, we do partnerships. But in a minute I'm going to ask Mark to come up, because Mark is the man that does Zimbabwe. You've met him before, some of you. But I would now want to ask Sally just to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear?
Yes, thank you.
when I come up and do this sort of thing, I think, Lord, what do you want me to say? And in the 41 years that I've been married to this man, I think I'd like to give a few words of encouragement to Ryan and Emily. And when you marry a man of God, Emily, you're in for a ride. You're in for a ride. And can I just encourage you hugely to just go on that ride. Go on that roller coaster. Pray for him, stand with him, uphold him, love him through all these things, because I've seen some stuff come in my life that I would never ever have done so if I hadn't married this guy. And when we married, we weren't Christians at all. So, well, at least I had a Christian upbringing, but had well gone away. And so by the time we got married 7 years, then we separated, we divorced, had 2 children. And it took us to come back to God. It took George to come to God and took me to come back to God. For God to just put you back in the pot and to stir you up and to say, no, this is the way, walk ye in it, as someone prayed over you this morning. And in the way that we've walked in probably the last 35 years now, 35 years, it's been an amazing walk. And I always stand in awe listening to other people like Graham and Maxine, what you've been involved with, and the way God brings things across your path, you know. You've got to take care, time and attention to listen to him. And he'll shape you and mould you and lead you and guide you and do all of it. Just be prepared to go. Because I don't want you wasting years digging your heels in and thinking, oh, I don't think I want to do this. This is really not on my agenda, not my plan, you know. And here I am now at 63 thinking, well, Lord, I wish I'd done more sooner. But I didn't. So God knows and he understands, and I think it's fantastic. Your first morning or first day as a married couple, and you're here in church. God bless you richly for that. God bless you richly for that. So even though my husband doesn't like children, we have got 2 grown-up daughters. And we've got 3 granddaughters, and they're a real blessing, But for me personally, I think I've come to a place in my life at age 63 where I've retired from my work, sort of self-employed, just still hanging on in there with that. But God has been taking me on more of a personal journey through Seeway, through my marriage, my home, and bringing me to a place of me bringing to him the difficulties I have in my life still at 63. Love God passionately, think he's fantastic. But I don't do love terribly well out there in the natural. And I've been aware of that because I know people who love so honourably, so well and so fully that it convicts me. So I know God's trying to do a work here. And although we've watched the Furious Love DVD, which is absolutely mind-blowing, I wow, Lord, how great you are. You know, as we sung this morning, how great you are. But I've also come across this little book. You'll probably know him very well, by a guy called Brennan Manning. Wrote the Ragamuffin Gospel many years ago, which touched a lot of people. My daughter gave me this book about 2 months ago, and it's called The Furious Longing of God. And if I might just read you a little page of it, because this is where I knew I had to come to God over this. Now, this man went home to glory in 2013, and the book came highly recommended. But it's the introduction to it that really captured my thinking, and knowing that, Lord, whatever you need to do in my heart with love, please do it. So it's that submission bit, really. The introduction to this book goes like this. I'm Brennan. I'm an alcoholic. How I got there, why I left there, and why I went back is the story of my life. But it's not the whole story. I'm Brennan, I'm a Catholic. How I got there, why I left there, why I went back is also the story of my life. But it's not the whole story. I'm Brennan. I was a priest, but I'm no longer a priest. I was a married man, but I'm no longer a married man. How I got to those places, why I left those places, is the story of my life too. But it's not the whole story. I'm Brennan. I'm a sinner saved by grace. That is the larger and more important story, and only God in his fury knows the whole of it. So then you start to read about his story and how God touched this man and brought him to a place of complete repentance, filled him with the love, that I so wanted in my life and still want in my life. A love that I can give out, a love that I can just soak in and be part of and do what God wants me to do in my heart. Because for many years I've been a Christian doer. I can do. God's gifted me with things I can do. But I think there's a season in my life now where I've got to be a Christian beer. I've got to be. And I just want God to come and just take Sally Bainborough, whatever that means, whether it's Seaway Trust or being a mum or a grandma or whatever, or a wife even, and just make me the beer, the person he wants me to be. So, you know, in doing all the little bits in our lives, we serve God, you know, as much as we can, as often as we can, as well as we can, we try. But Lord, I don't want to miss out what you want to do in my life, to let me be who you want me to be. So for Ryan and Emily, just be who you want God wants you to be. For all of us, I pray that now. And for Seaway, I thank you for this little church. I love this church. I love it. You walk a real walk in God here. A real walk. The walk and the talk, hand in hand, they go. And you see transformed lives. And we love you and love coming here. And thank you for your time today.
God has told me to tell you something, and I've said this numerous times because this is very interesting the way this meeting is going. My name is George and I'm an alcoholic. I joined Alcoholics Anonymous in 1973. What a surprise. I walked into a room, there was probably a dozen people in there. I was 23, and the youngest one after that was in their 40s. I thought, I'm too young. I'm too young to be there, but I wasn't. I want to introduce you to Mark. Mark has his own story to tell. Perhaps he might tell you a little bit about the beginning of his story. But Mark is doing a business, a good work in Zimbabwe. So Mark.
Well, hello, church. I'm the mad one of the Seaway Trust crew. You have to be mad to live in Zimbabwe. But I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for supporting us personally, and I want to thank you for supporting Seaway Trust. And it's a funny story how we came to be, but they found out I love saving children, and I found out they love saving children. So it was a perfect match. So thank you again for your support. But just as George said, I've got something to tell you. I'm an ex-drug addict. I'm an ex-homeless drug addict. So when these guys are speaking about the organisation, I know exactly where they're coming from. In 2004, not that long ago, I became a Christian, and God has radically turned my life around. And so I was sitting there when you were worshipping, and I'm thinking, what am I going to tell these people? You see, I didn't come here this time to do presentations. I came here for personal reasons, a family reason. And when I saw George 2 weeks ago, he said, can you come and update the church? And I thought, what am I going to say? So, non-Christians think my wife and I are crazy. Okay, seriously. Zimbabwe as a country is in a right mess. The government's got no money. There's indigenization, where the government are taking 51% of all foreign-owned businesses, including banks. There's the land grab, where the government is snatching white farmers' land, and you know, there's murder. People are being murdered. People are disappearing. There's no money in the country. There's 94% unemployment. There's just no money. The population is 12 million, or I'm going off last year's statistics. The population is 12 million. There's 1.6 million orphans. 0.3% of those are in places of safety. The country is a mess. So non-Christians think we're nuts for doing what we do. My family, although they support us, they're non-Christians. So I'm the mad one of the family. But actually, those of you who know why I'm there, because God told me to go there. And Christ is shining there. Do you want to run that?
Yeah. Okay.
The
Just
2000
run the lot.
2016.
Right.
You've got two there.
I got the wrong one, have I?
No, you've got two. You've got 2016.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the one, yeah.
yeah. That's. Get back and run it.
So this is, I just did this on a quick last night. There's so much more to this story than up here. By the way, congratulations, guys. But there's so much more to this story than there's up there. We had 14 children that we pulled out, and the children were in an abandoned babies ward at the local government hospital. 8 children were there at the time. They were taken to a babies home because the guy who got permission from the government to open a babies home felt God said he couldn't leave the bigger children there, so he took the 8 children with him. Now he was either waiting for people to adopt them or foster them, or he was waiting for crazy people like me and my wife to come and take the lot. So that's what we did. Our numbers went up to 14, living with us 14. So in total that's 18 children, because Dorcas has 2, I have 2, and 2 grandchildren. So our numbers now we've got children that have been reunited with the families, children that have gone to other organisations. So we've got 9 children living at home. But this is part of the craziness. We had 2 children living with us for years and years, Manasseh and Tim Cudgy. Now Manasseh was a young one. Tim Cudgy, obviously he was in grade 7 at the time of school. And Manasseh never got closer with his father. His father, by the way, should have been in prison because he abandoned his children. But the way it works out there, anyway. So Manasseh wanted to go back to his father. So he told the social welfare that when he had an interview, and they said that's fine, but we're not splitting up the family. They both have to go back. But Tim Cudgy, being a bit older, knowing what he was going back to, didn't want to go back because he was going back to extreme poverty. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we do the other thing. And so basically we pulled children. We pull the children that have no hope and we give them hope. We pull children that had no future and we give them a chance of a future. God has taken a bunch of what the world sees as misfits. He's taken an ex-drug addict. He's taken my wife who came from poverty like you wouldn't believe. And he's taken a load of abandoned and broken children and he's doing something wonderful with it. And that's why we're in that country. So, a couple of years ago, Tim Cudgy... Yeah, this was the Christmas play at the school. A couple of years ago, we got a phone call from the school. All the children at school now, Tim Cudgy and Manasseh now had been taken back to the father. Remember, living in extreme poverty. Now, the problem was, or the thing was, he'd remarried another woman and she had 8 children of her own, right? So now her 8 children were well looked after, or reasonably well looked after. They were all going to school, they were all getting fed. But Tim Cudgy and Manasseh were just left. You know, they were part of the family, but they weren't given anything. And when we used to get food donations and give them to the family, they never got. Because the man was is so obsessed with this woman, so her children looked after, these 2 aren't. Do you want to put the other one?
Yeah.
Please.
The other
Yeah.
folder? Yeah.
The good one, the good picture. Yeah. So we got a phone call a couple of years ago and said, one of your children that was in your care has collapsed. I need a file.
Right.
One of the children that used to stay with you has collapsed. Collapsed. So we got to the school. Now remember, Tim Cudgy had been taken out of our care and put back in his family, back in his father's care.
Feeding.
Yeah, this one, the bottom one.
The bottom one?
Yeah, that one, please.
Okay.
This was Tim Cudgy after he was taken from us. Okay, and what happened was Tim Cudgy collapsed at school, and so when we got there, we found out it was through hunger. All right. So then we looked into it. It was the 3rd week into the 2nd term of the year. 7 children had collapsed already that term through hunger. You see, in a lot of cases, it's not necessarily the parents' fault. They have to pay school fees, they have to pay uniforms. So these kids are going to school without breakfast, they're going to school with no packed lunch. So the only real meal they're getting is at night time. Okay? But a lot of the cases, like this one, is abuse. Now look, this is Tim Cudgy after he'd been taken from us. Now this is the Zimbabwe government file. Okay. They took this child that was fine, fit, healthy and looking great and put him in a home with nothing. And that's what we're fighting against. We're not just fighting against the normal things the devil throws at us, we're fighting against the government. You know, it's such a mess out there. It's such a mess out there. So anyway, so we started the feeding program. Now this was quite complicated the way we set it up, not as easy as you think. First we had to go to the headmistress. She said yes, of course. Then we had to go to the Ministry of Education to get permission. Then we had to go to the Health Authority. Now you think it's easy, but I'm the wrong colour to do that. Okay? But anyway, so my wife did it all. So the teachers sent letters home. Now we had to wait for permission from the parents before we started feeding the kids. So we expected 20, 30 kids. There's 700 pupils in that school, by the way. We expected 20, 30 kids. The first figure that came, the first week we started feeding, it was 80 plus people. And the figure kept going up and up and up and up. Well, Dorcas phoned me this week and she said, we've now got another 15, so we're now feeding 150 children per day. And so that's called the breakfast club. Because we have to feed them at 10 o'clock due to breakfast time. So, and that amongst a few other things, that's basically what we do out there. So, but the other thing, Dorcas is a big softie when it comes to twins. All right, we've got twins, and Dorcas is a big softie when it comes to twins. And there's a number of twins in this school. Okay, but it's weird the way God did it because these twins are really struggling. These twins there's 3 sets of twins that we look after besides the school, and because these families are really struggling. And of course that's Dorcas straight in there. She loves twins, you know what I mean? So, and we actually assist a number of families outside of the school because there is the poorer of these guys, and so a genuine one. So we actually assist a number. Okay.
Are you coming back, George and Simon?
Feeding is very important. We've been involved, as I said, with Tanzania, and I remember a story of a young lad that was brought down from the mountain. He was with his grandmother, and he was brought down from the mountain, and they take him into school, and they said that this kid was dull. This is the way they talk over there. The boy was dull. He stayed with Rebecca and Wendy in their home and started to be fed properly. And after about 3 months, they realised that this boy was highly intelligent. He was not stupid at all. He was highly intelligent. So the fact that these children are being fed a decent meal every day is very important, not just for their metabolism, but to help them to be able to learn and do their studies. We don't have this problem. generally in this country, you know, they say that in this country there's people that are struggling and all the rest of it, families that are struggling. There's no need for a child in this country to go hungry, but we see it all the time in the places that we're working. I went to Malawi a few years ago, and we went to one of these little villages in a place called the Lower Cherie, which is near Blantyre. And there was all these old ladies, and they were all dancing around and singing, and little kids. And I said, "Where's the parents of the children?" And they said, "Oh, they've gone to a funeral. AIDS. They've gone to their own funeral." So all these little children, little tiny ones, were being looked after by very old people. I remember one particular man. He looked 80. Might not have been that old, and he was bent double, and he lived in a little hut, which would have been from here to the wall, probably half that width, with his 2 grandchildren. And I looked inside, and there was nothing in there. There was a cupboard. I don't even think I saw a mosquito net in there. There was nothing. These people are looking after their children. So this is the sort of poverty that we see in some of these countries. What God has given me to do, everything that I do is related to making sure that the gospel goes out. Seaway Trust, the main thing says sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ worldwide, and then it gives about 20 different ways in which we can do it, including orphanages, education, medical centres, and all that sort of thing. And this is my vision, really, is to share the gospel of Jesus Christ worldwide. I became a Christian 30 years ago, so half a lifetime ago for me. And when I look back at my previous life, I was a police officer. I spent 30 years as a copper, most of the time pounding the beat or driving the beat. Never went for promotion, and I suppose I was pretty tough. Always, as a youngster, I was always in scrapes and scraps and all that sort of stuff. And even within the job, you get involved in tough stuff. Sally has said that we separated and we divorced, and I was living with a lady in Exeter, and we were on holiday in Mallorca, and I was sat on the beach, depressed. I'd been in AA for 10 years, so I was clean and sober, and but I was depressed, and I was thinking about an uncle of mine who had died previously, and he spent most of his life in depression. And I thought, well, I'm going to be like Uncle Gordon, live till I'm about 50 and die depressed. And right away the words came, you do not have to live this way unless you want to. You can do something about it. And I was sat on the beach, and it was like going from depression to joy. As quick as that. I came back from this holiday. The lady and I sort of drifted apart, and I prayed a prayer, probably my first prayer, and I prayed and said, God, if you're there, I want you to reveal yourself to me, and I'm going to come searching for you. But I didn't want to become a Christian, because I thought all Christian men were a bunch of wimps, a bit soft, and I didn't want nothing to do with them. So I looked into Buddhism and all that sort of thing. I didn't look into Islam, but I looked into all these Eastern religions. But I didn't know any Buddhists, which was a problem. Anyway, one particular day, somebody gave me a book written by a Christian, and I was just reading it through. And one particular day, I was working in the front office at Eversey Road Police Station, when the sergeant, who I knew was a Christian, was sat there. And I said to him, do you know anything about this fella? And he told me afterwards he nearly fell off his chair. When George Bainborough was reading Christian stuff, he nearly fell off his chair. So he invited me to his house, and I went to his house every Tuesday for months. And it was, at that time, there was some videos called Jesus Then and Now. And we were watching these videos, and then I was sort of asking him questions and interviewing him, and what about this and what about that. And that went on for a number of months. And after several months, I felt walking around in uniform in Hevertree Road, and I thought, well, George, you've done this for a long time now. You've asked all the questions, you've got all the answers you can get. You either become a Christian or you walk away. What are you going to do? And I thought, these people have got something that I want. There's something there that I want. I still didn't understand what Christianity was about. And I went back up to Andy, who was now a detective sergeant, and he ended up as a detective superintendent. And spoke to him, and he sent me across to the leader of his church. And that evening, I went over to see this man, and I walked into his house, and I was in there for about 20 minutes, and when I came out, I knew something that I knew I was different. There was some peace and a joy in my spirit, in my heart. Now, if you'd have known me before, to hear me talking like this, you'd have thought I'd, like him, gone mad. But there was something different. There was a difference, and I knew the difference, and the difference is still there. So now, because of my experiences in my faith in Jesus and the way I've looked, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a theologian, but what I can do is I can look back on what God has done in me and how He's dealt with me over the years. Recently, I retired I think about 12 years ago, and the last few years I've been a chimney sweep, would you believe? Good job, enjoyed it for a while, but it gave me the opportunity to speak to people, and what I found was, I would say to people, well, I'd say to God, if you can open a door for me to speak, I will. And very often I would say, somebody would say that they got problems, this, that, and I'd say, have you got any faith? And most of the time they say, oh no, I'm not religious. And I say, nor am I. Don't like religion. Christianity is spiritual. God is spirit. And what I've learned over this time, and I'm continuing to learn how God works in our lives, that God is spirit. And if we live a spiritual life, and if we give our lives to Him and live for Him, my life has changed. Lives change. Lives change. This couple talked about lives changing in their organisation, and I've seen it time and again with different people. The problem is that we look around, we see what we think Christianity is about. We look around and we see what the media talks about Christianity, and we want nothing to do with it. I wouldn't have anything to do with it. If I saw what I see on the television, the last place I would be going is into a church. But because I understand now what my faith is, what my relationship with God is, my relationship with Jesus is, that I can talk to my God on a daily basis and hear His voice, and He speaks to me and He takes me to wherever He wants me to go, life is so much different. I mean, who would think that sleeping in a van in a little mud hut village in the middle of Africa would be fun? And waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to pray with the Africans would be fun. Oh, it's awesome. It's wonderful. Yeah. This is what my life is like now. With Paul, with his ministry. You see, I've come to realise that God has given each of us a plan for our lives, a ministry. Paul's got his ministry with Mount Olive and what he does with other people. My ministry is rescuing children. And I believe that the children that he's talking about, I always thought it was little kids. But if you're 90 years of age, you're still God's child. You're still God's child. We had a thing where our mission house is out in Ghana. Earlier last year, I said to the people, we're coming over for 3 weeks, and I want to do 3 evenings. I want to do, or three dates. I want to do one for teenagers, one for old people, and one for children. So in the evening we did a thing where we did a little testimony, we showed them a video, and I think probably 15 or 20 kids became Christians at that time. The following day we did a thing for old people, and they counted all the people in, took all their names, and it was 91 old people came in. And one particular lady, little wizened old lady, had her toe cut off, so she was hobbling around. There was Muslims there, there was all kind of people there, and we fed them, we gave them a meal, we fed them, and they spent all day. And at the end of that, there was probably another dozen or so Christians came out. A lot of them were already Christians, but it's getting involved with people. It's getting involved in sharing that word, sharing the word of Jesus. You know, to stand there in Africa, Mark knows, to stand there with all these people who are hungry for spiritual things. They're not hungry for religion, they're hungry for the spiritual. And you can give them something spiritual when you're sharing the gospel of Jesus. And then the following time when we did for the kids, with 300 children turned up. 300 little kids. Dreadful, it was horrible. But a lot of those responded. And they had a good day. You know, these kids live in mud huts, they got nothing. And for them to be in a big group and all singing and listening and doing things, it's a day for them to remember. If I don't get off my backside and do something like that, this sort of thing doesn't happen. So, I am nobody. God told me to go and rescue children. Everybody in this room, God's got a plan for your life. If you find out what that plan is, and you follow it, God will take you to amazing places. So, that's me for today.
Hold on.
Thank you very much.
Can you just next down those children around the first time?
Oh, yeah. The first time I went to this home in Bojasi in Ghana in 2000, I felt God say before I went, I want you to get the kids to pray for me. And I got a picture of it somewhere at home, and there was me kneeling in the mud and about 60 odd kids praying. You see these African kids pray. Awesome. The presence of God was amazing. Presence of God was amazing. And he showed me other things. While this was going on, he was showing me what he wanted me to do and how he wanted me to live.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just got a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to, as we walk with the Lord, you need to be alert to what the Lord's doing, what he's saying to you, every day, not just on Sunday morning, for an hour, but every day. How we met, I was sharing yesterday, and how we met George and Sally, Angela and I. We were at the Devon County show, and we'd been walking around about 5 or 6 hours, maybe longer. My feet were dropping off, and I just wanted to get home really, and I wanted to get home before the rush hours, because there's 25,000 people there, and it's just absolutely horrendous when they all decide to go home. So I determined to go just before the rush left, and I kind of got Angela's hand, and we're kind of going out, and Angela suddenly says, "I want a cup of tea." I said, "We'll be home in 20 minutes. Can't you wait?" She said, "No, I want a cup of tea now." That means that we've got to kind of make a detour and find and it's going to take it, and I'm going to get stuck right in the middle of this traffic jam. And as I'm saying this, we're still walking, and suddenly we see free teas in the summer. And I went, great. I said, free tea, here we go, look, we'll go into the, no signs around, anything outside this tent. Go into this tent and look around and there's Christian stuff. And I think, oh, I don't know what this is then. And I saw George and Sally and I said, is this a church? Yeah, we're from what river church?
Well, it's a Pentecostal church, isn't it?
Pentecostal church in Exeter. And oh, right, okay. I said, well, we're Christians. And George and I started talking about our past, and Angela and Sally started talking. And suddenly we felt like the Lord had put us together. And our relationship started then. And I met them over in Living Waters again a couple of months later. And I really felt the Lord say, I want George to come into the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship. And I mentioned it to him. He said, you've got no chance, Paul. I went, why not? He said, oh, you know, things have gone totally wrong in Exeter and I don't want anything to do with it. They've made a total mess, and you know. And I went, I believe the Lord wants us, you know, I want you to join. He said, no, Paul, I'm sorry. So anyway, when the Sid home in Sidmouth had a weekend, I really felt the Lord say, contact George and invite him to come, even if you've got to pay for it, which really was, you know, had to be God. And so I said, so I phoned him up, and George said, no, I'm busy all weekend. He said, and I said, well, just come on Saturday then. And he went, oh, Paul, you're a pain. And I went, I really believe the Lord wants you to come. He said, well, he hasn't told me. I said, he has told you through me. So you've got to come. So anyway, George said he drove so slowly that morning to Sidhome, and he came, and you could see he was not happy, really. But suddenly people started prophesying into him, you know, and on the way home, he said to the Lord, he said, Lord, if you really want me to join the Full Gospel, you've got to get some guys, and it was some Africans, wasn't it?
No. What I said was, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to get some people together and pray about the Full Gospel.
Okay, yeah. And the Lord laid two people on your heart, didn't he? Yes. And when he contacted them, one had been a president and one had been another member, another officer. And so we started this Full Gospel prayer, and I used to go every week to Exeter with him, to their house, and suddenly other people started coming as well, other men, and I really said, I believe the Lord wants us to start a chapter in